Hello fellow bookworms, this is going to be part review, part amusing as to why I utterly disliked The Night Circus when it first came out, and why I love it now, because I think it's interesting to see how my mindset has changed. It comes in three parts: the good, the bad and the ugly. But first, what is this all about? In a nutshell, this is a non-linear, Victorian-based fairy tale set in a travelling circus. A large part of this takes place in London, but during this story, we travel throughout the West. The larger nutshell is this. Our story begins with a showy magician called Prospero and a mysterious man in a grey suit. These two unlikely fellows agree to restart a seemingly age-old wager that they call the game. By the way, I think you lose the game if you read The Night Circus, and if you know, you know. The two have seemingly played this game many times before, we don't know why. Each selects a child who they will raise and teach to perform magic, and these children are their game pieces. These game pieces have to play, for they have been bound by magic rings, which they don't fully understand the purpose of until later. In fact, there's a lot that the two characters don't know, even into adulthood. They are told about the game, but they don't know who their rival is or how they're supposed to win it, and they're not even sure how to play it. Despite the fact that this game is clearly dangerous, Prospero has put forth his own daughter, Celia, and the man in grey selects an orphan boy called Marco, who is pretty much neglected to get on with studying, whilst with Prospero's own daughter, the teaching lessons are a lot more physically drummed in. When they are both old enough, they find employment within this enigmatic circus called Le Cirque de Rêve, here, which means the Circus of Dreams, an unusual circus that appears in an undisclosed location mysteriously overnight. It opens only at night and closes with the dawn. It's almost like magic, everyone thinks. This circus is the arena that our two main protagonists will play. The main plot follows the two children as they grow up and try to uncover who their opponent is, whilst also trying to figure out how the game is played and how to end it, because they don't know how it ends either. And ultimately one of them may not walk away. One of them might not be able to do anything. One of them may... Because how else can you win the game? There are a lot of elements to this book, and because it's non-linear, I can only imagine how much of an utter headache this was to pull together cohesively. So now, my thoughts. I'm going to start with bad because this makes more sense narratively. But basically, all the bad things I thought about this book was when I first read it, so... Past me says, when I saw the bit about magical rivalries in the blurb, I was expecting something a bit more action-packed, with a duel and a dramatic climax. And when it wasn't what I expected, I probably skimmed it in a huff. It's not like I was lied to in what the book was about, but I definitely got a bit bitter that I got the wrong end of the magical stick, because I hadn't absorbed the rest of the language in the promo that suggested it would be a more quiet and introspective book than I was after at that time. As a result, I, wrongly as it turned out, thought that this had major pacing issues and that it was all fluff, and I don't know whether I commented or left a review that said something like, "This book was like candy floss, all fluff and no substance." I have at some point deleted that review. Thankfully. For me back then, it seemed to be a lot of descriptions of people thinking about doing stuff and then occasionally going, "Oh, look what I made," with lots of people going, "Oh, look what they made." And yeah, I suppose there is a lot of that because there just is. And because it goes deep into the motives and motivations of a large cast of people, it seems like there's not much of anything happening because the build is slow and the fall is swift. But I was expecting at least some blam blam pow. So I was especially annoyed because I bought the book when I was trying to be more careful and buying books I thought I knew I would like. Had I known, I don't think I would have bought this, but then future me would have been massively missing out. And this is interesting to me because theoretically I'm still the same person, apart from the fact that my cells will have completely changed and been replaced by new ones by now. But other than that, I'm the same person. But rather than saying that I was a big old idiot, I'm looking at past me and trying to be sympathetic and understanding because I just am. Which makes me wonder how many bad reviews come down to the wrong book at the wrong time, or somebody just finding out that the book they had wasn't the one that they expected. Cut forward to nowish, and I decided I might like a nice, quiet, magical read, and so I picked it up. And well, I can see why I didn't like this then, but I do love it now. Since I went in knowing what the vibe was, I was able to accept it for what it was. Introspective with buttoned-down characters. No one flew into a rage, no one cursed each other with dramatic balls of fire. It's a story that unfolds in the hearts and minds of those ensnared, for better or worse, in the life of the circus. And everyone who comes into contact with it is ensnared in their own way. It gives you everyone's point of view, lingering with each person or group of people, so you clearly get an image of how everyone thinks about and reacts to the circus, showing its importance not just to the performers but to the patrons and those who get to add to it in some way. And slowly their stories are woven together. I think Erin is very clever in how she does this, because when the poop hits the windmill, you're shown how this reverberates out. I'm going to put this down now. I also think what me back then missed was a lot of the more subtle nuances, the people's love of a wondrous event and all the pain that goes into keeping that going. The manipulations, lies and deceit, the generational trauma, the balancing act of keeping something going effortlessly, and the small deed it takes to bring it all come crashing down. And on top of that, the hope that maybe you can have everything, or at least not let everything be lost. So because when I first read this I decided to liken it to candy floss, I think it only fair that I find a new food to compare it to. This is a dark chocolate mousse. It still melts lightly on the tongue, but it's deep in its flavour, dark, rich and bitter. Something not to be consumed all at once, but each mouthful savoured. And now for the ugly portion of the book. This doesn't come down to a bad review, this is just the portion where I'm going to discuss the darker themes of the Night Circus. A large part of this book is basically about abuse and how it affects people and how these characters try and break free from it. And thinking on it, I think everybody who's involved in the immediate vicinity of the circus has suffered in some way, including the audience, who become obsessed with trying to follow it, and those who are unable to because of funds or, life, that thing that happens. The exceptions to this are perhaps the twins and the clockmaker, who I very much see as part of the happiness and contentment of what could be if it weren't for the challenge that adds this veil of desperation and darkness to keeping the circus going. But I also think it's about balance, the act of trying to keep everything going all at once, trying to cover the cracks whilst always pushing yourself to do more until with one push, one tiny bit of help removed, everything comes tumbling down. And then how can you rebuild without losing everything? And if you must lose something, what are you willing to lose? Erin does this very well, so I think it'll be interesting to see what else I can get from this book in future readings, or whether I'll even come to see it as candy floss again. But even if I do, I'll just have to bear in mind what this book means to me now versus what it meant to me before and what it could mean again. So is there any book in particular that you've completely changed your mind about? Let me know in the comments, and in the meantime, stay spiffy. The people's love of a